Okay, so let me just jump in and say welcome to those of us who are joining on YouTube, and welcome to all of you who are here on Zoom. It's delightful to have you with us, and welcome to the fall of the pandemic, the next pandemic fall. How many of these pandemic falls are we going to have, Eric? I don't know. My name is Stephen Fetter. I manage the United Learning Program for the General Counsel Office, and it is, as always, a pleasure and a delight to be able to gather you this way from all across the country. I'm just going to mute people's mics so that we don't interrupt each other as we move along. Just because there's extraneous noises and so on. So those of you who are speaking when your turn comes, please open your mic and be ready to do that, and then you can close it again when it's not your turn. Here we go again. Back into the fall and the fourth wave and the impact on our churches and all of the rest of that. And I know the impact goes far beyond finances. It goes into all sorts of different things. I was writing in a note to my official board members today saying I'm having trouble getting well enough connected with some of the new people who are starting to join us. I need to find different strategies because taking them out for coffee isn't possible. The pandemic changes everything, right? But it sure changes our finances. And I just want to acknowledge the folks who are giving up their time to pull all of these presentations together, Eric and Clyde and Angelica and Rebecca tonight. I mean, these are folks who are as stressed out by the pandemic as all the rest of us. And yet here they are, spending time and researching government websites and bending over backwards to make it easier for the rest of us. And we're grateful for your time and for your leadership and for your expertise that you bring to this. So thank you. And without any further ado, I want to turn things over to Eric and invite you to take us into the next installment of this never-ending story. You'll need to unmute yourself, Eric, please.
There we go. Now all I have to do is show a pet and we'll have an official Zoom meeting, right? Okay. Well, folks, welcome. We are calling this one "When Will It End?" But we have a fair bit of news to report tonight, but it's more of a status reporting nature. There isn't anything, brand new. But hopefully we've got a fair bit of updates on various projects and things that will make it easier to do your job. So, as always, let me just see if this is moving. Yeah, so as always, I start with the creed and remind us that we're called to be the church. And we've certainly been called in a way over the last year and a half that none of us signed on for. But before I dive into it, I do want to take a moment for a land acknowledgement. Since a number of us, actually the four of us broadcasting tonight are all in the Toronto area, we in Toronto acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We are grateful for the opportunity to live and work here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. This recognition must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. So let's bear that in mind as we talk about business of the church. And frankly, our work makes some of that reconciliation possible. So I'm going to start with a wee infomercial. And Steve, if you have a moment to paste the, I just noticed these aren't showing up very well on the slide. If you could paste those two web links into the chat box, that would be great. But again, we do the administrative side of church work to support the mission service of the church. And we do have online the 2020 generosity video, which is a way of saying thank you, and an accountability report for mission and service giving, and also an accountability report. So this is the kind of stuff that regular church folks will know, but many don't. And for treasurers, it's a chance to help explain where the money goes and the impact that it has. And again, we're coming up on stewardship season, so we have some stewardship resources available online or that you can reach out to. And again, that's the work that we as treasurers support and help keep track of. And I think that's a €20 bill, but we'll work on our artwork for future slides. Okay, what we plan to cover tonight, just point form, the federal subsidy programs are winding down. With the election result, I don't expect anything to change there unless the fourth wave ends up being way worse than anyone's suggesting so far. Continually reminding folks that the world has moved in a way that it isn't going back when it comes to the online dealings. For any new people, we have help desk support and so on, but your church, your pastoral charge should be online with the CRA by now. And if you're not, we can help you get there. We've got some updates on request with regard to our United Church online store and a special offer even there. And then of course, we'll be covering the payroll update. Something a lot of folks are asking about is assessments. So I'll be letting you know where that stands. And insurance continues to be a big headache. So those are the topics we've listed for tonight. We will of course try to field any and all questions as well. So that's the game plan. And with that, I want to start with a little shout out to the bearded guy here, the one with the beard that goes almost to his belly, as opposed to the one with the checked shirt that's just monitoring the chat box. Clyde Harris is this year, he does a lot of work with SAGE, and he does so much work and volunteer work just all over the place. But these are professional accomplishments. And he was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award here for whoever Alan Salmon is, and I don't need to know who that is, other than to say it's quite an honor to have the kind of recognition for someone who's giving back to his profession. Many of you will know that Clyde is just remarkably active in his community. He's supported treasurers at the presbytery level and the conference level for years and years and years. He's a nationally recognized, emeritus Boy Scout type leader. He's a Paul Harris Fellow with Rotary. Really gives us just a remarkable contributor. So Clyde, a shout out. You did ask me to remove this slide, and I ignored you. So anyway, congratulations on this most recent achievement. And now I turn it over to you to talk some content.
Okay, just to follow up, you said you didn't know who Alan Salmon was, but for those who are accountants on with us, and I know we have a number of them on here, Alan Salmon is the guru of accountants, and he could make Excel spreadsheets do anything. So you asked for one and he could do it. He was also a good friend of mine, and so it's quite an honor to get that award about 2-3 weeks ago. Anyway, on to what we're here for, Q's and CHIRP, as it's referred to. The Q's, we're just going to highlight a few points with it. There's no changes, periods 1 to 16. June 5th was the last time that that period 16 ended, and I think that would have made it about December 15th. No, January 5th was when the last application could go in for those. So that's just information. As far as CHIRP is concerned, we'll get into it a little bit in a few minutes, but it's only available for periods 17 through 21, which is now less than a month away of finishing. And then CHIRP will continue afterwards into periods 22, which takes us up to the 20th of November. Not everybody's going to be involved with CHIRP, but we will show that in a couple of minutes here. If you could flip it along. Eligibility for CHIRP basically is the same as qualifying for the CEWS with minor exceptions. And those minor exceptions are more in the corporations and partnerships. The churches are fine, but if you happen to run an ancillary business that you've got incorporated, it depends on how that incorporation has been done. And so you would need to check into it further. There's a good chance that CRHP will not apply because they are very limited. As far as the payroll is concerned, there's no change on the CEWS side of things using the pre-crisis pay. But with CRHP, it does not include any employees who are being paid on leave. There's a couple of our churches that have been doing that with people that are on leave. They've basically asked them not to come to work, but they're still paying them. And so CRHP does not honor that. CRHP uses a base period for pay, which is exactly the same as period 14 CEWS pay. So if you've got your records, and you should have because audits are being done, if you've got your records, make sure that when you put the data into the periods that we're working with currently, that you're using the same numbers as was used in period 14. Non-arm's length employees also use pre-crisis pay. Again, non-arm's length does probably not apply to any of our churches, but it may, depending on the corporate structure, if you've got a corporation. As far as calculations are concerned, I went through it. I could figure out what they were doing, but it's a whole lot easier if all you do is gather the information you need and data enter it into the calculator or a spreadsheet and let them do the calculations for you. I checked only 2 of the CRHP calculations, and I think we were out by a penny, and I don't know whether they were out or me, but one of us was different by a penny. Not enough to worry about for anybody to take the time to actually do those calculations yourself.
Okay, Clyde, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second,
Yes.
because I'm assuming that CRHP must be a successor to the CEWS, but it's all alphabet soup to me. I thought the church was bad. I think the government is worse. What does this mean? And is my assumption correct, or is there something else going on?
Actually, it's a different program. The CEWS is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which we've all known about for now close to a year and a half. And the CRHP, and unfortunately, I don't remember the acronyms fully, but it's basically working around the human resource. How much pay how has your pay amount risen since period 14? In other words, have you hired anybody? And that's what's going to affect that one.
Yeah, and it's Eric, if I can just weigh in, I looked at it a few times, and unless there's a significant, unless you've been, without staff or without a minister, you need to have a pretty significant bump in your go forward payroll for the CRHP to be the better choice. But the fact is, you can input, it's the same data that you're going to put into the spreadsheets, the online spreadsheets anyway, so you can check. But I've been telling treasurers that almost, unless there's a really unusual spike in your payroll cost, the CEWS, the wage subsidy program, will be the better solution.
Right, and if you're filling in the payroll, the spreadsheet or the online calculator, they calculate it for you, and you can accept what it says because it will tell you whichever one gives you the higher dollar value for a subsidy. So it works to your advantage to operate that way. So that's it for the CRHP. We just touched on it. As I say, it doesn't apply too much to us, but going
Okay.
on to one that we
Hang
should
on,
all be online now.
Just before you go, since you've been talking about it, 2 questions in the chat. First of all, do we include summer intern or summer student hires in CRHP?
If they're on payroll, yes.
And Liz says we just brought back the secretary to full hours and pay on September 1. Will that affect the CRHP?
It might. Put the numbers into the program and see what comes down.
Thank you.
Okay, the how to get online. The CRA has a great document here. It's 2 pages. It might be front and back if you get the actual document from them. But Eric, can you click on the link there just for a minute?
I'm not sure.
It worked for me earlier.
Well, it looks like it'll work, but I'm just look. Let's see what happens.
I can do that. Do you want to show that at the?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, because it for
hang
me
on
it
just
came
a
up on
second.
the screen.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about
You-
losing my PowerPoint, so I'm going to say no. But
Okay,
Clyde, if you just take us through when we started, there were no tools for church people to do this, and
Yeah.
we've got a help desk now for and Rose and you have been helping people for a year and a half. That's still available, but the CRA has really made things accessible and useful now.
Sure. So let me just take over sharing for a minute, Eric, and
I'll stop here.
well, I'll share this, and then we can come back to your PowerPoint in a second.
Okay.
There you go, Clyde. There's the document you wanted shared.
And
Just tell me when you want me to scroll through it.
if you just scroll up through it, you can see where it's a 4-step thing here for getting people online. But one of the good things with it is now if your directors and officers are listed in the on the T1235 form, their names are on the file. So they can get in here and be registered. And I would suggest that if you've already got somebody on here with access to their business account, that you get them to sign off on it, and you can get extra people, and you can put as many on there as you think is necessary for them to do their work. And then you go down onto the second page, and it just gives access for charities, and it explains some of the things that we can do on there. So it's really important to have that access. If you were using the 4-digit access code, I would suggest this is the time to start looking at getting into access through the My Business Account system, so that you can do things like file your HST returns, pardon me, a GST or HST, file your T3010. Much easier on here, except that the one big drawback there is you still have to copy everything from, it's not, well, it hasn't been said that they're going to pull information from last year over. So it's retyping a lot, but it's still faster, I found, and a lot easier than killing another tree of the paper that's required for it.
And Clyde, one question, this is for the newest people in case someone doesn't have an account. There is that initial verification where you have to provide some individual information. That's still the case, correct?
That's still the case.
People
Everybody
are
that
nervous
gets
when
access they have to have a personal account.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Everybody should, because everything's going online with the CRA. There's going to be a time where you're not going to get the printed forms for anything.
Right. But again, most of the folks probably on this call know, but if there's anyone new, by all means, reach out to us and we'll help you get there.
Right.
Okay.
Rose is very good at getting the people online with it. So.
And now I reshare. Is that what I do?
You just reshared the same PowerPoint you were sharing before. I put the link that Clyde was using into the chat there on both the Zoom chat and the YouTube chat, so you should be able to find that. And the slides, of course, are available afterwards at United in Learning as well.
Okay. And I see Carol McKnight has raised her hand, so I don't know if she's typing in a question or.
Yeah, probably better to type in questions, Carol. We're not allowing our participants to open mics tonight because we got 162 of you. So
So-
type it in the chat and then I'll pick it up when we come to our next stopping point. If you
Okay,
please.
here we go.
Okay, so here we come, some more information from it, but I wanted you to see the actual document that the CRA came out with, because this is the type of work that they're trying to do. And I was talking to an official from the CRA today at a conference I'm participating in. And I really let them know that things were really much more advanced than they ever were before on how good their resources are. And despite what most of us think about auditors, their whole way of doing things now is to try and educate first. They're not out to get you. They just want to make sure that things are done properly.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's just a side thing. Back to this, my business account, add the directors if they need access to it. Not everybody should or would. Each person signs up individually. They have to sign up for their own, and then you can go through represent a client and get the authorization. I did one, about 3 days ago. I think it was Sunday night. I sent it in and I accessed the account today. So authorizations are flying through pretty quick.
Great.
Okay, on to the next one.
So
And
let me just step in and say, Clyde did a whole pre-recorded webinar on the nuts and bolts of doing this. And I'll go and find the link for you in a second. But if you haven't already done it and you need those sorts of nuts and bolts hand-holding, rather than take up the time here tonight, I'll go and have a look at that webinar and then reach out to Clyde if something's not clear.
And we also have the help desk information later. So
Right on.
bear with us, folks. We're trying to balance the fact that lots of, or the regulars, have been through the wars with us on this and learned it already. But if there's new information, we have all kinds of links at the end of this deck as well on who to contact. Back to our
okay, back to the next part.
Lifetime Achievement Award winner.
The software, I've been asked recently by a number of churches about software and how to change away from this or how to move to this one or this kind of thing. And I put down here just a few things to try and remember. If you're looking at software, you should try and figure out what your criteria is before you even start looking. You'll want to know what your pain points are that you're trying to solve by making a change, and only get what you need. Now, there's two main providers of desktop programs, Intuit and Sage, Intuit being QuickBooks and Sage, and both have desktop programs, which I think most people are using now. Both of them have online cloud programs, totally online. There's a lot of advantages to it. Both of them have good points. Both the desktop and the online have good points, and some of them have even some downsides. So be aware of it, but make sure you do your homework on it. I have actually seen a church change their software 5 times in 4 years. And that just drives everybody crazy, and it costs money to do it. So anyway, many other programs are also available. Church-based programs designed for churches. But a lot of them provide you a lot more than what you might want or need in the program. And so just be careful of what you're buying, how much you're paying for it, and what you get out of it. The average software program that anybody purchases, you'll only use less than 50% of it. Keep that in mind and watch what you're doing. The secret is whatever you use, it has to be set up correctly. And by correctly, so as to give you the reports that your board and your committees need to do their work. And make sure that it solves the concerns that you've identified that make you want to make a change. And I'm going to give a full disclosure, as you've heard about Sage Circle of Excellence and things, but the full disclosure is I have been, I am, and I will be a Sage software supporter using desktop version. And I say that, but I've also got two that are listed as my clients that are on two churches that are listed, and they're on the online system from Sage. So it is working. I know it works as long as it's set up correctly.
And folks, my advice to treasurers is if you happen to be a accounting professional or a spreadsheet wizard or whatever, whatever you pick has to work for your successor. Because otherwise you're going to be stuck as a treasurer for a long time. So that's also one of the criteria is, try to find something that's transferable or easy to use. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Clyde.
Just one other point, Eric, that ties into that software. Banking is the same way. Don't move to a different bank until you know what you're going to get by making the move. We had one person who contacted us about switching banks, and it turned out she was doing some great things in the bank she was in. So why would you move away from it? Because you would never get that opportunity in the new bank. So same thing. Know what you're getting when you make a move.
So just a couple of quick questions before we let Clyde go, Eric, if you please. And it's kind of about the nuts and bolts of the CRA account. We've got a new treasurer starting at year end. How do we get this person on our list sooner? How do you get people onto the list? How do you find out who's on the list? Various different questions like that. Can you give us a 30-second answer to that?
If they pull up this particular slide deck and get that link for the CRA help sheet, that will give you all the directions you need.
Perfect. Thank you. And what about moving to fund accounting? Is that something people should be putting energy into?
If your funds are really active with a lot of entries, yes, you should consider it. There's other ways of doing it. And all of this software I mentioned can handle fund accounting, even though it's not quite the same. It's pretty close, and it works and gives you the data you want.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. I think that's it for now.
Okay, well, folks, I'd like to then introduce you to Rebecca Hornberg, who's the manager of our online store, the United Church retail presence, and she has some news and a special offer.
Thank you for the introduction, Eric. And I've been spending some time looking at all of you, all of the faces, and most of the faces, you're all new to me. And so I may also be a new face to you. So my name is Rebecca, and I am managing our online bookstore. And you may know us as the ucrdstore.ca, where you on occasion may be purchasing various products, everything from hymnals to books and online Sunday school and everything else. Recently, I should say this fall, so earlier in the year, summer just passed in a whiff, I guess, I made the decision to close our church accounts, meaning that in the past, many of our communities of faith, they had the opportunity of simply placing an order with us and referring to their church accounts. And later on, they would receive an invoice that we accepted payment for. As of July 1st, the church account is no longer an option for payment. So today we are accepting debit cards, prepaid credit cards, regular credit cards, so essentially digital payments. You can pay through our website. So by visiting ucrdstore.ca and using your credit card or debit card at checkout. You may also place your order through an email or by phoning us, because ultimately, when it comes to sort of giving your transaction details from your debit card or credit card, we have to have you on the phone if you're choosing to place your order through that method. I understand that there may be a lot of questions to how come you closed the church accounts? They were so convenient. And indeed, they were very, very convenient for a lot of communities of faith. Unfortunately, not all the invoices were paid to the point where they accumulated over time. And well, you may think like, well, what's an invoice for a couple of $100, and that doesn't really matter. But if you multiply that by a couple of thousand communities of faith, the added up number is significant. And it felt like we were not being good stewards for the resources entrusted in us. So as of July 1st, we're only accepting debit cards and credit cards for payment. Does anyone have any questions about this new process before I move on? I would welcome that in the chat. Just going to monitor.
Rebecca, while we're
Not
waiting-
seeing any questions at this point, Rebecca, so I think you can carry on. And if there are any, I'll pick them up and feed them to you.
Okay, excellent. Perfect. So I heard someone, I think it was you, Steve, you were talking about stewardship, and we have 3 pages of stewardship resources on our website. And I figured that it would be a good way for you to nudge people into trying our new website as well, to find resources on stewardship. And we have a special offer that is valid from today until the 29th. So you will be receiving 15% off our entire stewardship collection when you type in the code Treasury15 at point of checkout. And I will be typing that into our little chat box so you can see both the URL, so the web address, as well as the exact code and during the period for its validity. Thank you so much for letting me speak to all of you directly. I've been really looking forward to this opportunity.
Thanks, Rebecca. And just to say that you can't buy anything on the internet on a pay later basis. And again, this is part of trying to streamline the administrative support that we provide. Not all congregations have a congregation credit card. In fact, it can be a nuisance to get one. But the fact that we can do it with a bank card now is great news. And my own church, we often just have an individual pick it up on their own credit card and get reimbursed.
Yeah.
So listen,
And
folks.
just to add to that, Eric, I mean, certainly today you can buy these prepaid credit cards at gas stations, at the post office, at most grocery stores. They are literally everywhere. So it's an option to sort of buy these prepaid credit cards, or even talk to your bank about issuing a debit card, and both would be accepted at QCRD.
Great. Well, listen, folks, we've been fielding a fair number of questions as we go. So unless Steve tells me there are new ones, I'm going to skip this slide. But as you can tell, put forth your questions at any time, and we'll try to deal with everyone during the webinar. And if not, we follow up with folks afterwards. So next, over to Angelica on the team pay update.
Hello, everyone. Favorite topic of the night, team pay.
Your favorite.
For those who don't know me, I'm Angelica, and I'm the HR and payroll manager. And I'm leading the project for the upgrade from ADP. So if we can get to the next slide. So just an update with regards to the project. As everyone knows, we started last year, and we're almost at the 1,200 mark of payrolls that have been converted. If you have not received your user ID and password from ADP, please send an email to Canada SBS at ADP, or you can call their client service center. The run as is payrolls, I think you will remember that we were having some challenges initially, but successfully. There are no issues anymore. The issue at the time was the threshold for the monthly payroll was at a minimum of 3,000 only. So we've been able to increase that threshold. So the run as is payrolls are running smoothly so far. And again, any issues or concern, don't hesitate to call ADP or my payroll staff. Login passwords are required regularly. I think everyone knows that every 2 months or every 3 months, and it improves the security. You can also set your own password online. Again, if you are having challenges, don't hesitate to call us or call ADP. The forms, again, this is just a selling point. It's going, you're reducing the number of forms that you're using. You're inputting directly to TeamPay. You can add a new employee directly. You can keep all the forms locally. So TeamPay is the way to go. Next slide. In addition to that, I think I've mentioned the bridge. It continues to collect and put resources, live recordings, and user guides on all of the various aspects of the payroll cycle, hiring a new employee, salary changes, terminations, and recently we've added a new video, which is year-end adjustments. So again, if you don't have access to the bridge and you want access, please connect with ADP or please call payroll or service team. We'll be able to assist you with that. But it's a great resource. Again, your reports, print what you need, and the employees will have your portal for pay statements and T4s. Year-end reports are important for your records, so that we all be there. And I know, Clyde, you were going to talk about the financial recording piece.
And Clyde's on mute.
I was going to talk about financial recording. Okay.
That piece.
Yes. The thing that I was going to point out is I've run into a lot of churches that are taking the reports that come out of TeamPay, and then they're taking numbers. And like in one case, they were taking 72 numbers out of the report every month to put into their financial records. You don't need it. As long as you've got the financial reports there from TeamPay, all you need is the bulk number for how much they deducted from your account for the check, and you need to break it down into EI, CPP, and your benefits. And so you can make it fairly easy to report. There's no need to repeat what the ADP is doing for you. The detail from it is required maybe by your M&P committee when they look at increases, but I don't know anybody else in the church circles that needs detail about the employees. Your board or council approves an increase of X%, and how you split it across the employees is really not needed to make that decision, because you start running into problems with the privacy issues. And I've actually seen some fairly nasty ones. So just a word of warning, you do not report detail anywhere, but have it available for those who might require it for their job. That's about the bulk of what I was saying, bulk number reporting. So try and get it down to as few numbers as you can, and it makes it easier for you.
Thank you.
The other thing with payroll is that September 30th is a holiday.
Yeah.
And every one of us should have already adjusted our pay schedules.
So just to reiterate, ADP will adjust all the affected payroll schedules, just for you to know. The input run date is the 24th of September with a pay date of the 29th. Just a reminder that all of the pastoral charges who are voice or fax should submit all the changes on or before September the 24th. Really important. And again, your support team is ADP service team and the UCC's payroll service team. that you can always contact us via phone or via email, or you can send me an email directly at my email. And that's about it for tonight.
Okay, thanks. Before you disappear, a few questions are coming up for you. St. Andrews United in Cumberland was asking about the change in date, and you've already answered that. So just a few others. Angelica, Michelle says, Angelica, please let ADP know that notice on a Wednesday that payroll submission must be moved up to Friday from Monday is very inconvenient. So she would like more notice than that. I think that's a comment rather than a question.
Okay.
John Brash is asking about honorariums, and do honorariums have to be taxable when we're entering them with ADP? So there's a little bit of discussion in the chat about where you might put it if it isn't, but I think we need to ask you or Clyde about whether we need to be collecting money on things, collecting taxes on things that we call honoraria.
Clyde, what's your experience?
Clyde's on mute.
Yeah. Can you get that again, Stephen? I missed.
Well, the question is simply, do honorariums have to be taxable? So you can interpret that however you want, but what's our responsibility as employers when we're paying what we call an honorarium?
An honorarium is paid out in full, and it gets reported on a T4A form at the end of the year if the total amount for the year is more than $500 per person.
And in terms of the question around, there is no tax withholding.
No.
But if the honorarium is a big number, a bigger number, there is a risk that folks will, there is a risk of payroll audit around whether that person might actually be considered a part-time employee instead of an independent contractor or volunteer. So just flagging that. But there is no withholding.
I will guarantee an audit will be done if it's a large number. And then you get the problem of trying to justify what you've done, and it's hard to do.
Good, thanks. Somebody else is asking, well, I'll just read it out. I'm wondering if anyone at head office checks the setup of new employees that have pensions on ADP. I had to make multiple emails and phone calls to get someone set up, and I'm still hoping that it's correct. Is there anyone kind of doing an audit of that stuff?
We are doing an audit. We do have access to the team pay for pastoral charges, but we definitely do a monthly audit along with our benefit and pension groups.
So thank you. Carrie's asking about the codes that ADP is using. The reports can look like alphabet soup. It even makes the government look bad. I'd like clarification of which codes with ADP represent cost to us, CBP, EI, and all that sort of stuff. Is there a master key somewhere that tells us what each of those codes mean?
We can provide you the user guide, and you'll be able to find that information on the user guide. And again, the bridge holds all of this information, including web and training live videos.
Super. So not everybody will know what the bridge is, Angelica. What is the bridge?
It's a repository where ADP contains all of our training and resources for team pay.
Perfect. So can you put a link in the chat to the bridge and maybe to the user guide so that Carrie can find it and other people can too, please?
Yeah, the codes.
Just one additional comment. The codes are important when you're setting them up, but once you've set them up, you can get off the report. It's called a journal entry report that has all the costs to the church. It's all there.
And Michelle is talking about how in her church, the congregation approves a staff budget line without having a breakdown on the budget that goes to the congregation. And then a smaller working group divides it up for specific people. That's, I think, a fairly common way to handle it. Those are the questions I'm seeing, folks, unless I've missed something. So Eric, by all means, go ahead to the next section.
Thanks, Steve. So folks, you're stuck with me for a while now. Just, a key question as you're starting to think about budgets for 2022 is obviously the assessment level. Those of you who were with us in the spring, you'll know we've done a lot of work on the assessment level, and there's been a multi-year process to get everyone up to the same consistent assessment formula across the country. And in April, we did quite a number of folks had chosen a 3-year freeze on their assessment because there was going to be, particularly in the eastern part of the country, Ontario and to the east, some fairly significant increases to have a consistent, transparent approach. So that was going to be pre-COVID. Folks were going to be looking at a pretty significant bump in some cases of assessment. Others were looking at reductions. But with COVID, there's been a 1-year extension to the full implementation of target assessment. And target assessment is a statement that is on your Church Hub account, where you know what you're paying currently. And there's also a statement based on your statistics and your revenue on what your assessment will be going forward. So we did a couple of things, and we've talked about this repeatedly in the spring, but I'm just going to go over it again. For many of you, if you're paying at the target level of assessment, your assessment actually is going to go down in 2022 because your revenues were down. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is to be more sensitive to local capacity to pay. For those of you looking at increases, if there's an increase of $500 or less, that will be come into effect for 2022. If there's a larger gap, we're going to split it for another year as a COVID adjustment. And that's been approved by the General Counsel Executive. And there's also some streamlining and some new rules that we've learned over the last few years around how we calculate investment income. So I'll talk about dates and when you'll have your reports in just a second. So when we talked in the spring, we talked about how all the numbers, we were waiting to see what the statistics would tell us about how things have gone at the congregation or pastoral charge level. I'm going to say there have been relatively few surprises. I was predicting a shortfall, excluding government subsidies, of something in the 15 to 20% range, and that on aggregate, that's what it looks like we've had happen in 2020. Again, if your congregation is already at the target level, that means your assessment for 2022 goes down. On this, in about a month's time, we'll be going to the General Counsel itself, the General Counsel 43 recall, just to get ratification, official governance ratification of certain of the formula changes that have been made. So by November 1st, we'll have a statement online. There'll be an email broadcast in English and in French telling you that your statement's there and what the final number is for 2022. The numbers, if anyone is looking to get some of that information sooner, we have it relatively final for congregations that don't have large investment accounts. We're still finalizing the systems for the larger accounts. So feel free to reach out to me if need be. So again, if you're at target already, which is about half the congregations in the country, you'll pay less assessment in 2022 than you did in 2021. In a rare case, if your revenues excluding wage subsidies actually went up last year while most of us were closed, then there is the possibility that your assessment would increase accordingly. And in 2023, it all depends what your revenues do this year. So there's a 1-year lag in the calculation. And the whole idea is that every pastoral charge has a consistent and transparent way across the country of contributing to the work of the broader church, which of course funds regional council and national governance and so on. If if you aren't at target, because your revenues decreased, a couple of years ago, you would have looked at this. My congregation would have been looking at a forecast that said its revenue, its assessment was going to way more than double. But with COVID and everything else, revenues have declined. Suddenly, the increase isn't as big. The target has been moving back towards us, as it were, and that's the whole idea. Again, on an aggregate basis, most regions actually are looking at assessment decreases for 2022, and some regions where assessments were historically low will be doing the catch-up activity. Switching gears a little bit here, the United Church emergency loans, there's a fair number of them out there. The interest-free deadline has been extended to December 31st. Again, those of you who took advantage of that program, if you repay by December 31st, you get similar to the SEBA loans, you'll get a credit of $500. Most loans were $10,000, and if you repay $9,500 by December 31st, there's no interest and the $500 credit. We still have that loan program available. It's available online. It's an online expedited application. And at this stage, we think we might not be extending the deadlines any further, but it's all COVID related. If it's needed, if it proves that if we bump into some problems reopening again, we'll certainly want to take that into account. Okay, as I said, the interest-free period, there's two ways to pay, either by check to the General Counsel Office, Maria Pimpinella, or Attention Finance, anything like that. And increasingly, we don't want to touch, we're trying to promote electronic payment. This is the language that you could use to, in an email to authorize the General Counsel Office to take that money from your account. So again, we're promoting electronic payments at every turn. In fact, the General Counsel Office doesn't cut very many checks anymore because it's faster and cheaper to get the money to, whether it's vendors or congregations, to do it electronically. A shout out to Church Hub. All treasurers should be registered with Church Hub, and if you're not, again, let me know or reach out to Susan Jackson, S. Jackson at united-church.com to get registered. We'll talk about Church Hub a little bit more, but this is the online portal, if you will, for your connection to the national church. We've recently enhanced it to include support for search committees. So there's a search committee function. We've dealt with a number of fixes around how ministers record their information and so on. A lot of work to basically get it working better and faster over the summer. So if you're already online and know of it, that's great. If not, please do, because eventually, in the next 3 to 6 months, Church Hub is going to be the way we know who to communicate with. And that's where your assessment information is going to be, your billing statements. Again, more and more electronic as we try to save money but maintain a service level for congregations. Insurance has been a real headache for many of you. Just want, again, for any new people, rates have gone up by at least 50% or more across the entire industry as it relates to faith buildings. It doesn't matter which company you're with, what broker you're with, and the underwriting is way tighter. It's been a real headache for us. Any of you who have a renewal in say September, probably haven't received your renewal information yet, and you normally would get that a month in advance for a September 1 effective date. And that's all because, you know, after years of not requiring it, we've needed fresh applications from every congregation. The insurance company's doing way more underwriting, and frankly, we're fighting really hard to keep an affordable program going. I'll talk a bit about that as well. There's a key line on this slide, or a couple of things. The requirements are stickier, and we are looking for a current app, or they are looking for a current application. In terms of replacement value, when your application is processed, the information on your application around square footage and type of construction, there's a tool that the broker uses to put an estimated value on what the replacement cost should be. And they will put that into the renewal automatically. I have seen a number of successful appeals of that. So where the insurance amounts got increased and someone said, yeah, but you didn't know this, that, or the other thing. So it's not that you're absolutely trapped, but the insurance cost environment is a real pressure point for us right now. Because again, it doesn't, insurance is something we all only need and want when we have a claim, not the rest of the time. So that's a challenge for any new folks. We remind people that being closed, it doesn't help. That actually increases the risk of something happening at a church building. So I list here again a number of, there have been many questions about appraisals. So here's a list of companies that do appraisals in Canada and different provinces. And right now, if your building hasn't had any heating or electrical or plumbing upgrades in 35 years, there's a chance that the insurance company will be asking for updated information, or potentially even coming out to inspect it. We are looking at a number of ways to reduce the cost. The United Church actually self-insures, so it takes the risk and even part of the premium. This is called the group funded deductible for smaller claims, and this helps reduce premiums. The broker has reduced their commission, and we've got a long-term relationship. But local brokers don't like a reduced commission. So there's all kinds of challenges with this. I want to say that I have commissioned a study. Lots of private sector companies do something called self-insurance, or even have their own little insurance company. And I have commissioned a study because we are big enough to be able to do that. It would take a bit of work where, you would pay your insurance premiums to the United Church, for example, and the United Church would worry about all the paperwork and arrange for claims to be paid and so on. It's a bunch of work, but it has the potential to reduce premiums considerably, because we would take out the company profit, we would take out a lot of the marketing costs, we would take out a lot of the commission. So this is a study that I just signed the paperwork last week. We will have a look at it, and it could be the next thing we do as a step, as a collective step, to help everyone maintain, retain, reduce their costs and still get the protection we need. Cyber risk, we talked about this in the spring, and there's some information around what coverage there is, what deductibles there are. It's available. Every congregation that is in good standing with the United Church is covered automatically in the same way that you are covered for directors and officers. And this is insurance paid for at the national level for several reasons. But one is trying to provide some value to all our congregations, but also because we can get this kind of insurance for pennies on the dollar on a group basis. Because the frequency of claims in the case of directors and officers is very low. So we're saving every congregation some hundreds of dollars there. For cyber risk, we also have this coverage, and I have here, but it's also a key thing here is it's online. The web link is there, and maybe Steve could paste it into the chat there. But basically, all congregations have this coverage. The biggest value that I think it provides is the educational component. So you can sign up for broadcasts, and we'll be providing more tips and advice on how to manage cyber risk. And you've probably heard of ransomware and so on. But that's in place for all congregations now. And also the information, including the policy wording and so on, is online. I've had a number of congregations who have bought this and now been able to discontinue it because this provides better or similar coverage. So again, there's a fair bit of education piece, but it's all about education on the prevention side. They will actually even sort of test to see what our systems and our things look like, and most importantly, if there is a cyber event, the key would be to report it immediately. I would say report it to the insurer, but also report it to us, so we can make sure that all resources are brought to bear before it becomes a costly or PR nightmare. So just a few things. You've heard us harp on this already tonight, so I'll be quick. You've seen this slide, but we're continually promoting the idea that we have to be online now. Every pastoral charge should have the My Business account. Every pastoral charge should not only have the ADP, in my opinion, have all employees on ADP, but also availing themselves of Service Canada now. We don't need to care as much because I think that's covered more automatically on team pay anyway. As Clyde has mentioned, you can now set people up more easily and have backup. And that's really, really important because the number of congregations we dealt with over the last year who, at some point had done this and then lost track and then didn't know who it was, that's been a major headache. So again, as we're all working together, probably more than we ever have, and I say that nationally, I say that regionally, and also in terms of clusters and networks that various groups locally. The statistics reporting is really important. We have, I think we still have a few hundred congregations that we haven't gotten their statistics. I hope no one on this webinar is on that list, because we've been saying all through the spring that if you haven't submitted your statistics, among other things, your assessment's likely to be higher because the statistics would have reflected COVID impacts and COVID revenues. Again, getting your contacts on Church Hub is more important than ever because we're just going to be in a more electronic world. Mission and service giving. That's still what fuels the broader mission of the church, globally, nationally, and in all our communities. You've seen the material. And again, the whole area of calculating a fair assessment comes out of the statistics. So if by any chance you haven't submitted them, if by any chance you don't know what I'm talking about, reach out to me tonight or tomorrow morning. So again, what we've been trying to do is build a model where assessments amounts are known well in advance, where it's predictable and easy to understand. We want to promote pre-authorized payment at every opportunity. We're not there yet, but we're in a 40% range in a number of regions. I think BC, Pacific Mountain region, has the highest use of electronics, but I would encourage everyone to consider electronic payment for assessments, either set up as pre-authorized withdrawals or paying online. And again, we have the authorization forms and all that out there for you. A key point through all of this, when we're here tonight, we're trying to make, help keep you up to date on what's going on. But we hope that we're getting and providing value to each other at each level of the church as we further the mission of the United Church. So again, these contact items will be online, but I think there were still one or two people out there with some CRA setup questions. We have the help desk. The CRA stuff is light years better than it was before. It's literally, I'm going to say, set up for dummies now. So my advice would be to just walk through it, and if you still bump into an odd challenge of being, pre-registered and not knowing who or something, then Rose and Clyde at the CRA help desk can have probably seen the problem before. Then we've got the other areas where you can direct questions about specific parts of the programs that we talked about tonight. Follow-up questions. Here's email for Clyde, Angelica, and myself, and certainly Rebecca can be reached at the UCRD store, and the convention for our emails is all first initial surname and at united-church.ca. So I don't know if there are any further questions, but even as we field any of those, I just can't say enough. Thank you for what you do for our church, for your own church, for our whole church, frankly, for the country. But your generosity does matter. And we're all here to make a difference. And again, nationally, we do produce a variety of materials that are intended to help get that message out to as many people as possible. So thank you for that. And Steve, I'm going to flip it over to you for any questions or final comments.
Sure. So the last question came in first, but I'm the one to answer that. And that is, yes, absolutely. The webinar is available to watch afterwards. In fact, you can go and find it now. We have recorded webinars, and I'm just going to find you the link for all of our recordings. So these are recordings of webinars for church treasurers. You will find all the stuff that you've been dying to read or watch right there in that link. Including the recording that's here tonight, because it's recording live and people could go and find it there if they wanted to. I've got just a few questions, Eric, and they are kind of niggly and procedural rather than deep and profound, but important, I think. Maybe this isn't so niggly. Will mission and service information be added to Church Hub? I gather it isn't there yet. Do you have a target date for that?
Short answer is yes. If we're talking about mission and service status reporting in terms of where people are at and so on, yes, there's an initiative underway. I'm blanking on the date, but it's not too far away at all. And right now I think we have that information available on Stewardship Toolkit, if I'm not mistaken. But the short answer is yes.
All these things are they take time, right? It's all staff time. It's amazing the nitty gritty that goes into it. Barbara says, we've got an insurance renewal in May, sent in the application, but still haven't had an invoice or payment schedule. It's September now. Should we be concerned?
Well, here's the thing. That's appalling. It's just appalling. But having said that, I am aware of cases like that. You should not be concerned. If you sent in the application, you shouldn't be concerned. You are covered. The insurance company and the broker have given us blanket assurances that to the extent that they're causing the problem, they have to provide coverage, and you are covered. Now, having said that, please do email me, and I will get you an answer from the very top of the house at the broker, just to make absolutely sure.
Well, and I need to say in our congregation, our broker has always been great. If we have a question or something that's taking time, we just pick up the phone and talk to him, and he gets back to us pretty fast. So maybe yours will too if you call him or her.
But again, if someone has a local broker, that local broker is equally hamstrung right now because the problem is at the national level.
Got it. At least they can do the chasing instead of you. So who typically deals with this cyber insurance in congregations? Is that a trustee matter, Eric? Is it an official board matter, a treasurer matter? Who does this?
Well, it's brand new. Trustees are typically responsible for maintaining adequate insurance. It's a role described in the trustee handbook and so on. However, I'll tell you, at my own church, we moved it over to the church side because the trustees forgot to renew it one year. So the main thing is that that insurance gets done every year. It's typically the trustees. Cyber insurance is so new that most congregations don't have it. It's been around for 5 or 6 years, but generally, it's only the last year or two, particularly during COVID, where people are starting to realize how many internet scams there are out there. Mm-hmm. So it is the trustees that would look at cyber insurance the same way they would look at property or comprehensive general liability insurance.
Thanks. So pre-authorized payments for assessment payments and monthly mission and service funds. That sounds like a good idea. How do they go about it, or where do they find information on that?
If you Google assessment or go to the assessment page on the National Church website, it's there. If you email us, I can send you. Basically, there's an authorization form you need to sign if you want pre-authorized, and if you want to do it electronically, like just make periodic e-payments, there's a how-to guide. It's a 2-page guide, and it's certainly available on the assessments homepage on the National Church website.
Okay, thanks. And I got a message from Noel, who says, how do we go about getting a current application on file regarding property insurance? I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you, or do we need Noel to say more?
Well, Noel, I'm going to just read into that question, and they can elaborate maybe on the chat box. But the application form is available again on the National Church website under UCC. If you search UCC Protect or group insurance or anything like that, the application is one of several forms that's at the foot of the page. You can download it and print it off. It is something that you will have been asked for as part of the renewal process. And renewals for the church program began last December. So we're in the last quarter. September is sort of the last batch of this frankly awful intensive underwriting process. So it may be that you've already submitted it, but if not, that's where you go.
Thanks. And last question I see is about the cyber insurance. Do we have to apply for that separately, or is every community of faith covered by that?
Every community of faith. Now I'm going to define that. We've been using that term a little more broadly, in church land these days. Every pastoral charge or congregation that is in good standing, in other words, is part of the United Church, is covered automatically, has that coverage.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So an outreach ministry that might be separately incorporated, for example, would not have that coverage.
So that's the end of the questions. And I give you one last kick at the can, Eric, before I close us off.
I'm supposed to kick at the can?
You can say whatever you like. If you don't want to say anything, I will just say thank you. But if you have a final word to say to your fan club first, I think you should.
No, I would repeat the 3 lines on this slide. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you want to send in any ideas around how we can make Clyde's Hair or mine a mission and service fundraiser, or Rebecca's, feel free to do that.
Oh, I can hardly wait. Friends, thank you. It's great to connect with you. I hope you had a restful summer. And now that we're all back into it again, here's another fire hose of information. So thank you to Eric and to Clyde and Angelica for all of the work that you do and for sharing it with us in this way. Want to remind you that this webinar is being recorded and that all of our recorded webinars are available at unitedlearning.com. we're doing this monthly. We've got 3 dates for the fall. So we've got an October date and a November date. I don't think we're going to do it right around Christmas, but for as long as there's new things to talk about, we'll keep meeting this way. So good to have you with us.
And next month, we anticipate having pretty well all the information you're going to need for budgeting. So that's everything from assessments to whatever we know about insurance or benefit costs, inflation factors, all those things we'll be covering next month.
And as always, if you've got questions you'd like us to include, let us know. You can email Eric directly, or you can, there's a button on the United in Learning website that describes this program that says email your questions to them. Those come to me and I just forward them on to him. So one way or another, we want to be responsive to the issues that are bubbling up in your own site, because if they're in your site, they're probably somewhere else too. We're going to say goodnight. I'm going to take the leaders into a private breakout room so that they can debrief with each other before we all go our separate ways. Ian, or sorry, Ivan, we're not opening mics for participants, so put a comment in the chat if you want to do that. I should also mention that Eric always reads the chat the next day, so if we've missed something that needs a response, he gets back to it pretty quickly too. And otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you again next month. So, thanks, folks, and good night.
Keep safe, everybody, and get your passport.
Yeah.